Welcome back to the Bruderhof YouTube channel, where we're talking about following the call, living the Sermon on the Mount together, and we are on chapter 13, Salt and Light. I'll just read this excerpt from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So this is probably one of the more recognizable passages from the Sermon on the Mount. And, this idea of a city on a hill has been used by many people. Some people think of the United States as a city on the hill. But what is Jesus getting at with this metaphor of salt and light? And in this chapter, we have some reflections from Charles Moore, who's the editor of this volume, and a poem by Tyson Clement, also a Bruderhof member, and John Stott. And Charles Moore here talks about Jesus' concern is not that his followers get more involved in the world, but that they don't become like the world and lose their true identity. So salt is a distinctive element, right?
Yeah. And the other part that Charles points out pretty early on in his analysis of this passage is that Jesus tells us that we are the salt of the earth. We are the light. He doesn't say you should strive to be the light of the earth or the salt of the earth, but we are. And I think that there's a connection there with what's not from human efforts or striving, but given by God, and truly a gift to us. So that made me think in this passage in a new context that because we're blessed with that, we have no choice but to be distinctive from the world.
I mean, but there is the danger that we lose that.
Yes.
That we lose that characteristic that's given to us. And I think that's really the main thing, and that for us in living in Christian community and trying to live out these teachings of Jesus, really important that we don't conform to what's going on in the world. There's a lot of things that change in culture. Even over our 100-year history, there are things that I think our grandparents couldn't have even imagined happening in the culture and geopolitically. And what can we hold on to stay grounded? And it's simple. What we can hold on to is what we read in this sermon. And if we do that, we will continue to be salt and light. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, we will be an encouragement to others. And that will draw people. Mm-hmm. So it's not a political program. I don't think it's going out and agitating or making a scene. It's simply living out the teachings that we read.
Yeah. So I was thinking, especially with this first section of the chapter, how there's so many ways you could debate how to let your light shine, how to be the salt of the earth. But Charles points out that if you do try to, as soon as fear comes into the equation, I think that is what kind of denies the saltiness or denies the light, because there is this concern or tension that we try to protect ourselves and protect our own distinctiveness. And while it's important not to make a lot of clamor and effort to try to go save the world with human efforts, if you do hide your light or just shield yourself from those interactions, he was saying here, and though the nature of the light is to shine, it can be obscured by an opaque covering and lose the power to illuminate. This happens when we conform to the thinking and ways of this world and keep our religion in our pockets. Putting a lamp under a bushel might keep it from getting blown out, but the price for such protection is darkness. And I think that sums it up well. And to me, that's also just fear and lack of courage.
Yeah. And, you know, it's important to remember that being the salt and the light does not mean being people who necessarily have it all together, or who are, you know, these perfect people, this, you know, beatific city. Let's remember the people that Jesus came for, right?
Yes.
And that's summed up in this poem by Tyson Clement, which I think maybe we could end up with reading, because I think it's a really good reflection. It's called Resolve. She writes, I'll wash my hands of innocence and cast the snowy robe aside, and shun the face of purity to walk where sinners now abide. The barren, brutal face of hate I must go forth to look upon, and clasp the hand of treachery with love as if it were my own. My sins are inward and refined, my friends, the gentle friends of God. I must go seek the publicans, the wild companions of my Lord. So I think it's a really important recognition. Like, as Christians, the temptation can be sometimes to perform our righteousness in front of other people and think that we're doing the Lord's work in that way. And I think we might end up being surprised that that's actually not what Jesus is talking about here. So lots to reflect on. I mean, do you have any further?
No, I think, like you were saying, we might be surprised, and that's because we have to be open to God working through different people, however broken. Like, nobody's perfect. Oh, dear.
Cool. So thanks for joining us again this week. Thanks for everybody who's reflected on the video, some thought-provoking thoughts and questions. And look forward to hearing from you again.